Hey everybody, it's Maggie and welcome back to This or That. Today, I want to do something a little different. I don't know if this video is going to be a hit or not, but recently I have been really into reading. I go through these really big swings where I'm like devouring books and then I just much rather watch TV at night, and then I'm devouring books and then I'm watching, yeah, you get the point. Recently I've been traveling a ton and my favorite thing to do on airplanes is read. And so since this has been like a big thing for me going on lately, I figured that I would share with you what I was reading. Now, if you're not a big reader, I challenge you to pick up a book and read it because there is a book out there for every single person. I understand it takes a lot of attention. It takes a lot of time to like sit there and read that. Maybe you have really bad eyesight, but if you do, pick up Audible. Like, put a book in your ear. Reading is wonderful. So I'm going to share with you what I've already read this year and what I plan to read. And I don't know if this is weird or not, but I keep an entire document on my computer of every book that I've read. And I've been doing this since 2006. The list has gotten pretty long, but there are some years, and just to prove, like I can show you, can you even see? But there are some years when I read like 5 books, but then there's other years that I've read like 20 books. I don't know, it just shows that I go in and out of these big waves of reading, and it all just depends on what's going on in my life at the time. So let's dive into this because I think this might be a little long. Alright, so the first book that I read in 2017 that I think you should dive into this summer, because I think that the summer is reserved for books that are fun, fantasy, hilarious. Like, I don't really want to read anything too heavy. I love funny people biographies. It's just one of my favorite genres of books, I guess. I've read both of Mindy Kaling's books. I've read Tina Fey's. I've read Amy Poehler's. But this is one that I've read in 2017, and this is Anna Kendrick's book, Scrappy Little Nobody. So this is, of course, her telling her story about how she became famous. You know, sort of, you just see more into her personality. So I can read a little blurb for you. Even before she made a name for herself on the silver screen, starring in films like Pitch Perfect, Up in the Air, Twilight, and Into the Woods, Anna Kendrick was unusually small, weird, and 10% defiant. At the ripe age of 13, she had already resolved to keep the crazy inside my head where it belonged, forever. But here's the thing about crazy. It wants out. In Scrappy Little Nobody, she invites readers inside her brain, sharing extraordinary and charmingly ordinary stories with candor and winningly wry observations. There's more in this description, but I'm not going to bore you. It's hysterical. I was laughing out loud. And I got this for Christmas, and I ended up reading it through the Christmas break, and I kept reading passages out loud to my family, and they were losing it too. So if you like Anna Kendrick and any of the movies that she's in, I highly, highly recommend. Okay, see a trend? Another funny person biography. So this one is Lauren Graham's, and it's called From Gilmore Girls to Gilmore Girls and Everything in Between, Talking as Fast as I Can. If you watch Gilmore Girls, which I just got finished a couple months ago, watching it from start to finish, got on a kick. I also got this book for Christmas, and it was hysterical as well. I also didn't know that, well, I don't want to ruin this for you. In Parenthood, which was another one of my favorite shows that she's in, her brother in the show is actually her boyfriend or fiance or husband. I don't know where they are. She doesn't go into detail about like their specific relationship status in this, but in real life. So it's weird that she's like dating her brother in real life. But if you haven't seen Parenthood, I highly recommend. This book was hysterical. It did give you more insight into Gilmore Girls and how much that role meant to her. It's called Talking as Fast as I Can because her character in Gilmore Girls speaks incredibly fast. And it was sort of this new style of dialogue that she and Amy Sherman Palladino, the creator of Gilmore Girls, wanted to try out, and she delivered the part really well, and she was really good at it, and she sort of became known for that. That is where the title of the book comes from. So this is all about her sort of rise to stardom as well. I really enjoyed this. So if you're a Lauren Graham fan and you haven't read this, I really think that you should go out and get it. Alright, the next one that I read, I don't have the book with me because I actually borrowed it from my friend, and that is the Magnolia Story. And it is sort of the whole story about how Magnolia and Fixer Upper and Chip and Joanna came to fame. And it walks through their marriage and how they met, and they sort of just fell into this role on HGTV, and how somebody approached them based on these blogs that she was doing, and sort of the twists and the turns that their lives took to get them to where they are today. I thought it was really funny. It's written by both Chip and Joanna, and it's denoted by like italics. As you're reading, it's very easy to tell who wrote different passages. I really enjoyed that. I really like the show, as you've probably, if you've watched any of my other videos, I've probably mentioned Fixer Upper. But anyway, yeah, I really like the Magnolia Story. So if you're really into Chip and Joanna and you want to learn a little bit more about their backstory and how Fixer Upper became the big, humongous thing that it is today, along with the Silos, the place in Waco that you can actually go and shop for their home goods, then you should definitely give that a read. All right, the next one also don't have, like the next 4 I don't actually have because I am a big library reader. I'm not somebody that needs to own books. I went through a phase where I did. I wanted them because I have this dream that one day I'm going to have this house with tons and tons of shelves and I want to fill them all with books. But lately I've been in this big declutter mode if you've watched my declutter series, and so I've just really taken a liking to going to the library. And at my particular library, they give me 99 automatic renewals. So late fees are just not a thing anymore. Maybe because so few people are using the library. I don't know. Maybe we shouldn't flood the libraries again because I don't want to pay late fees. I digress. So this is the reason I don't have these books to show you. But the next book I read was sort of like, meh. If you're a big Sophie Kinsella fan, she's the person who wrote like the Shopaholic series, which I haven't read. But there was this other book called My Not So Perfect Life that I read, and it took a really strange turn. It was basically about this girl who grew up in very rural England, and her big dream was to grow up and go to London and work for this, you know, blah. It's like the whole every Hallmark movie sort of plot line, like, oh, she wants to be a high-powered executive and like be in this marketing world, and then realizes that that's not the true her sort of situation. But it takes a really strange turn. So if you think I just ruined it for you, I didn't. I only described the plot line of every Hallmark movie. If you're into glamping, like the book talks a lot about glamping. It was very strange. Classic little happy love story. If you're into those, I do recommend. If you're somebody who's like, oh, that stuff is crap, then you would definitely hate it. So don't waste your time. But it was good. It was a fun, happy, little, really easy thing to read. So the next book I read is called Small Admissions, and it's written by Amy Poppel, I think is how you pronounce her last name. This is the only book that she's ever been the author of, and it was really good. And I have a friend that's really interested. She lives in New York, and she's really interested in working in like private school admissions, and she had a summer job where she did that in the past. Long story short, I read this and I was like on the way to go visit her, so it was all very pertinent. As the description goes, one admission can change your life forever. When ambitious grad student Kate Pearson's handsome French almost fiance ditches her, she definitely does not roll with the punches despite the best efforts of family and friends. It seems that nothing will get Kate out of her pajamas and back into the world. Miraculously, one cringe-worthy job interview leads to a position in the admissions department at the revered Hudson Day School. As Kate begins to learn that there's no room for self-pity or nonsense during the height of admission season or life itself, her sister and friends find themselves keeping secrets, dropping bombshells, and arguing with each other about how to keep Kate on her feet. Meanwhile, Kate seems to be doing very nicely, thank you, and she is beginning to find out that her broken heart is very much on the mend. Welcome to the world of small admissions. It was really good. It's like one of those books that's not like anything else you've ever read. It's sort of like I felt when I first read The Help. Very different because that's actually very serious. But it was like this author wrote this really awesome book, but then she had nothing else that she had written. And so I was like, well, great. I found something that I like and I can't find anything else. I do highly recommend this book. Way over that My Not So Perfect Life book. If you want something that's still funny and sort of light and enjoyable. I really loved Small Admissions. Hop on that. Amy Poppel. All right, the next book that I also really loved, and I think it's sort of on the same lines as Small Admissions in that the author doesn't have a whole lot that she's written. It's by Camille Perry, and the book is called The Assistants. And this is one that I got off of, okay, back up. So I follow 2 blogs pretty frequently, the everygirl.com and Glitter Guide. And Glitter Guide always puts out these wonderful book recommendations every single month. So that's sort of what I use to figure out what books I like. That's how I found My Not So Perfect Life, Small Admissions, and The Assistants book. This is a debut novel by the person I'm reading here on Amazon, so I can give you the description since I've already read the book and I don't have it. It says, Rule 1, all important men have assistants. Rule 2, men rule the world. Still. Rule 3, there is enough money. There is so much money. Tina Fontana is a 30-year-old executive assistant to Robert Barlow, the CEO of Titan Corp, a multinational media conglomerate. She's excellent at her job and beloved by her famous boss, but after 6 years of making reservations and pouring drinks from bottles that cost more than her rent, her glamour of working for a media company in New York has completely faded, but her student loan debt has not.
So, I guess I can read the whole thing. I don't want this to be boring.
When a technical error with Robert's expense report presents Tina with the opportunity to pay off the entire balance of her student loans with what would essentially be pocket change for her boss, she hesitates. She's always played by the rules, but this would be a life changer. As Tina begins to fall down the rabbit hole of her morally questionable plan, other assistants with crushing debt and fewer scruples approach her to say that they want in. Before she knows it, she's at the forefront of a movement that has implications far beyond what anyone anticipated. It was really good. I devoured this book. I read it in like, I don't know, 2 days or something. It has pretty big print and it only has like 200 something pages. Definitely more of like a dramatic spin on a summer read. It doesn't have like this big involved romance aspect to it, although it does have one minor plot line. But yeah, just something new, different, sort of something that a lot of people I feel like this day and age can relate to with the student debt thing, and it plays with like moral questions of if you were to be presented with this situation, would you act the same? And it takes all these twists and turns, and yeah, I really liked it. I do highly recommend. All right, the next book it was also recommended to me Also recommended to me on the Glitter Guide website. It's called Chasing Slow, and it's about how to like slow down your life and simplify things and just spend time with people and not want so much and not buy so much and just to appreciate where you are. Turns out, the person who wrote this book, Erin Lochner, I think is how you say her name, is this super famous blogger that I had never heard of, and she's been blogging for like over a decade, and so a lot of her blogs had to do around like minimalism, and it's just like a lifestyle blog basically. I don't know, just like chasing a slower lifestyle and getting rid of things that you don't need, and it's sort of something that I've been into again with this declutter mode that I've been in. Anyway, she also has recipes throughout. She has recommendations of items that are her favorite. She makes all these lists, and it's sort of an interactive book. Now again, I got it from the library, so I couldn't like write my own list in the book, but if you want something that's sort of interactive and sort of like a journal slash book slash recipe book, it's something that you might be interested in. We're gonna blast through these because I haven't read them, but I can read you short little snippets about what they are because these are on my future reading list. The first book that I'm actually almost done with, you can see, this is written by Donald Miller, who also wrote Blue Like Jazz, and he's like a Christian writer. This is talking about how he learned to live a better story, and so these people approached him and wanted to make a story about his life based on some other books that he had written, and it's sort of about them crafting this movie and how they're telling him like, no, you can't use your actual life because that's not what's entertaining on the screen. Suddenly the wheels start turning and it all starts clicking that I have so much more left to do in my life. So he sets out to go do it, and he talks about how that changes his life. It's been really good. There are some passages that I have marked for myself that I want to go back and read or like share with other people to read. I really enjoyed this. It's sort of awkward for me to read at first though, because I feel like when he writes because he's more like of a spiritual writer, he's trying to make these connections and these points, and sometimes to me it can come off as like a little he'll be like, and then I said this, and it's supposed to be really hard hitting, and you're like, okay, well now you're just bragging about what you said. But if it's insightful, whatever. But no, on the whole, I really do like this. I need to finish this up. This is one that I've had on my reading list for a really long time. The first couple chapters weren't my favorite, but the further I got into it, I started really, really loving it. And it also makes this connection with Bob Goff, the author of another book that I've read called Love Does. Yeah, pretty good. Sort of about get up and do the things you've always wanted to do and stop sitting around moping and dwelling on all the things that have gone bad in your life, and just make your life better and worthwhile, because everybody has a purpose and everybody's, you know, worth it. These are the other two books that are on my list, and this one was also recommended on that blog, which I'll link below because I've mentioned it like 18 million times. So this is called The Reminders. What happens when a girl who can't forget befriends a man who's desperate to remember? Grief-stricken over his partner's death, Gavin Winters sets fire to every physical reminder in the couple's home. A neighbor captures the ordeal on video, turning this unsung TV actor into a household name. Now Gavin is fleeing the hysteria of Los Angeles for New Jersey, hoping to find peace with the family of an old friend. Instead, he finds Joan. Joan, the family's 10-year-old daughter, was born with the rare ability to recall every day of her life in cinematic detail. In seconds, she can tell you how many times her mother has uttered the phrase, "It never fails," in the last 6 months. 27, or what she was wearing when her grandfather took her fishing on a particular Sunday in June years ago, fox socks. Joan has never met Gavin until now, but she did know his partner, Sydney, and waiting inside her uncanny mind are half a dozen startlingly vivid memories to prove it. Unable to resist, Gavin strikes a deal with Joan. In exchange for sharing all of her memories of Sydney, Gavin will help Joan win a local songwriting contest she's convinced could make her unforgettable. The likely duo set off on their quest until Joan reveals unexpected details about Sydney's final months, forcing Gavin to question not only the purity of his past with Sydney, but the course of his own immediate future. Told in the alternating voices of these two irresistible characters, The Reminders is a hilarious and tender exploration of loss, memory, friendship, and renewal. Sounds pretty good, right? We'll see. This next one I actually found when Brian and I were in Cape Cod. We put our name on a list at dinner and then walked over to a bookstore to kill a little time, and I saw this on the shelf, and I loved The Martian. Like, really, really loved The Martian. And this is sort of what I think is going to be the next Martian. I'm not sure if it's set to be a movie yet, but it's sort of like, if you've read that book or seen that movie, you know how people go before the main character and sort of set off to all these different planets to see if they can find life on them? Well, I feel like this book is sort of about those people that set off before. No, that's Interstellar, not The Martian. Either way, I just described Interstellar, so you're with me. So anyway, this is called The Wanderers, and it's by Meg Howry. In an age of space exploration, we search to find ourselves. In 4 years, aerospace giant Prime Space will put the first humans on Mars. Helen Kane, Yoshihiro Tanaka, and Sergei must prove they're the crew for the historic voyage by first spending 17 months in the most realistic simulation ever created. Retired from NASA, Helen never trained for irrelevance and longs to return to the only place she's ever felt truly at home, space. For Yoshi, it's an opportunity to prove himself worthy of the complicated wife he has loved absolutely, if not quite rightly. Sergei is willing to spend 17 months in a tin can if it means eventually traveling to Mars. Constantly observed by Prime Space's team of aubers, Helen, Yoshi, and Sergei must appear ever in control. But as their surreal pantomime progresses, each soon realizes that the complications of inner space are no less fraught than those of outer space. The borders between what is real and unreal begin to blur, and each astronaut is forced to confront demons past and present, even as they struggle to navigate their increasingly claustrophobic quarters in one another. The Wanderers offers an intimate portrait of our deepest relationships in the most bizarre of circumstances. Definitely a little deep, so maybe I'll read this when it gets a little closer to fall, since I just told you summer's more for my lighthearted reads. But anyway, I hope this video wasn't too boring. This is obviously something I get really excited about, so hopefully you like this, and if you do, then give it a thumbs up to let me know so I can track the numbers and see how many people actually want to see this again. And subscribe, stick around if you haven't already, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!